Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It's my pleasure to have Ryan Levesque with us. Ryan is the six-time Inc. 5000 CEO of the Ask Method Company and the #1 national best-selling author of the books Choose and Ask, the latter named by Inc. magazine as the #1 marketing book of the year. His work has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business Review, Forbes, Entrepreneur, and NBC News. He's also co-founder of Bucket.io, the world's leading software suite for coaches, consultants, course creators, and hybrid experts with over 80 million end users worldwide. Ryan, it's so great to have you on the show.
Stephan, it's great to be chatting. I know we've been planning this and trying to make this happen for a long time.
Yeah, you were sharing before we hit record how this was a great testament to no is basically not yet. It's not a no. Do you want to elaborate on that? Because I think it's such an important lesson, not just for marketers, but for us as humans to go through life seeing no's as not yet.
I learned to reframe no's at some point in my career as a no is actually not a no. There's no such thing as a no. There's only not this or not now.
Yeah.
And when you think about it like that, when we hear no, it feels like it could reject us as a human being, and it's very hard to take that on with our ego. But when you reframe every no that you get in business as either being not this, meaning, yeah, the thing that you put in front of me, I'm not interested in that thing, or not now, like the thing that you've put in front of me is a yes or a maybe, but right now it's not going to happen. And when you can get to what that answer really is, when someone says no, not this or not now, what it does, it opens up this whole world of possibility. You put the same thing in front of that person, maybe 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road, or do you have a conversation with them to find out why is it not this and what else might it be? It's not training, but maybe it's software, or it's not something for $1,000, but maybe something for $100, or maybe not $1,000, but something for $10,000. And when you can get to the truth, you get to the cash. And I like to say the faster you get to the truth, the faster you get to the cash.
Right. And so we've been in conversation about doing a podcast interview for 5 years or something like that. And it didn't happen, but then you popped in my mind again. I'm like, we never did have that podcast conversation. Let's make that happen. And I reached out and the stars aligned and the Red Sea parted. And now here we are.
And it was perfect. And it was just a lesson, like the context around it. It was, the way that we do things in our business is I will do interviews and sort of media type work for a window of time. Otherwise, what happens is you have your entire year where you have really no freedom if you're doing that. And similarly, you have a recording schedule for kind of the same reasons, because otherwise you could be recording something every day of every week, of every month, of every year for the rest of your life. And it can feel like your existence is dependent on a recording booth. And so to get those two windows to align, sometimes it's not as easy as it may sound. And we've been finally able to get them to align. And I'm very glad that we did.
Yeah, me too. Let's talk a little bit about your origin story before we get into some of the meat and potatoes of online marketing and what a hybrid expert is and how to kind of up-level your relationship with your constituents and understand them better, all that sort of good stuff. So what would be the most impactful story that you'd want to share about how you got to where you're at now?
Yeah, I look at my career as being in a few different phases to get to this moment in time. So a bit of my background, I, grew up very working class. I was the first in my family to go to college. I studied neuroscience and East Asian studies, Chinese studies at the Ivy League level at Brown University. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And so I thought I might go to medical school. I thought I might go into business. And when I was still in college, I had an offer to work on Wall Street after graduating. And I did that for a period of time, which was awesome and a lot of fun. And I had this desire to live and work in China. So I moved to China, taking my Chinese that I'd spent a fair amount of my education learning. And I spent about 5 years living and working in China in finance. And along the way, I kind of always had this bug to start my business. Like I thought I'd like to start a business someday, but I was kind of afraid. And I had this experience in life that I think a lot of people can, identify with. I was afraid to give up good in order to go after great. I had a very good career, I had a very good life. I was making good income. It wasn't like I was living in a box on the side of the road or anything like that. I had a very good career and I could see my trajectory, but at the same time, I felt like there was something missing. Like I felt like I had more to give. I felt like I wasn't living up to my potential. I felt like there's just something more to life. And I didn't quite know what that is. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But then in 2008, in the middle of the world financial crisis, I literally walked into my office one day, Stephan, and I had a Wall Street Journal Asia edition that was on my desk. And it said, AIG, the company I was working for at the time, to file for bankruptcy. That was the headline. And it was one of those like kind of like moments in life where I was like, okay, this is the sign from the universe I've been waiting for. Like, all right. I called up my wife and I said, honey, go to WSJ.com. And she said, well, what does it mean? Are you going to lose your job? What does it mean? I was like, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not going to stick around to find out. This is the sign I've been looking for. And so I wrote a resignation letter, signed it, turned it into my boss's office, gave my 2 weeks notice, and I was out the door. I had no other job lined up. I had nothing. But I just had this desire to start a business. So I sold everything that I owned, donated the rest, had 2 suitcases. My wife was in grad school. She was going to school in Hong Kong, moved into student housing. We were kind of in our late 20s at this point. And in a 400 square foot apartment, I started my very first business online. And it was in a tiny, random, obscure niche market, teaching people how to make Scrabble tile jewelry. And I had everyone in my life who said that I was a total moron. What are you doing? You're giving up everything. You were in neuroscience. You worked on Wall Street, an investment bank, and fine. You're giving up everything in life to sell ebooks, teaching people how to make like Scrabble tile jewelry on the internet. Like, what's wrong with you? People thought I'd lost my mind. But that little business, which I call a practice business, really taught me the skills to build a website and send out emails and learn how to market and sell and all of these things. And so I went into another little niche market in the orchid care space and then in the memory improvement space to make my parents show them that I was actually using something with the psychology and neuroscience classes that I took in college. I was going to do something with that. And before I knew it, I'd gone into 23 different markets, all these little random niche markets where I was selling education and expertise. Oftentimes, these were markets where I wasn't an expert myself. I don't have a degree in horticulture or jewelry making or anything, but I learned that when you are a student helping other students, when you are a learner helping other learners, to the 4th grader, the 5th grader is a genius. And you only need to be one step ahead of where your audience is. You don't have to have a PhD in the subject. And in many cases, when you are a learner on a learner's journey, you can advise and help people in a much more meaningful way than the person who's been an expert in that space for their entire career. So it set me off on this path and this passion around building a business around education and expertise, transforming the knowledge in your brain into an income. So I did that for a period of time. And then I developed this methodology that was kind of what allowed us to be successful. And it was really revolving around doing this combination of surveys and quizzes and assessments to understand a market at a deep emotional level, and then use it to funnel people in different directions, and built an entire business around it. You mentioned the book Ask, wrote a book, published it, launched it, really didn't know what to expect, became the #1 best-selling book in the country in all categories, not in like a random, obscure category, but it actually beat out Malcolm Gladwell's book that launched the same week. And it was the spark that lit a fire that ended up setting off the company that we built, the Ask Method company, 6-timing 5,000 company, a software company that is the technology for building on this, and kind of led us to this moment right here, right now, today, where in our company, in our business, we serve experts, coaches, consultants, course creators, people who are looking to build businesses, transforming their knowledge into income, using the methodology that proved to be so successful for the 23 markets that I went into. And then now I think we've served something like 14 or 15,000 clients in our business over the past decade. And that's kind of been what we focused on the last 10 years plus. And it all started, Stephan, literally in a 400 square foot apartment with nothing but a laptop and an internet connection. And I think our first month in business, we made $370. So it was, a story of we've taken no outside funding. We're self-funded bootstrap business. We've taken on no outside debt to build our business, and just literally grew from $300 to $600 to $1,200 to, and the numbers just get bigger and bigger. But I think it shows what's possible when you focus on one approach. There are a million ways to make $1 million. You got to pick one. You focus on one approach and you do it with persistence and consistency.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, congratulations on your success. Now, you said you have 14 or 15,000 clients, but you also have 80 million end users of your Bucket.io platform. Do you want to kind of explain for our listener how that works? Like, what's an end user and what are they doing? Value are they getting out of your software?
That's a great question. So we have a software. It's called Bucket.io. We built an entire company around this, and it's a marketing automation technology that takes people through some form of quiz, assessment, or survey where imagine when someone lands on your website and it's like, I'll give an example for you for your podcast. If someone lands on your website and you've done, how many episodes have you done in your podcast?
400.
Okay. So you have 400 episodes. Where do I begin? I'm overwhelmed. And you only have one chance at a first impression, right? So when someone lands on your website and they say, hey, Stephan, what episode should I listen to first? Imagine if you had some form of assessment that was, hey, look, I've got 400 episodes of my show. And if you tell me a little bit about your business, where you're at right now, maybe what your biggest priority is or the biggest challenge in your business, I'll be able to direct you to the best episode or maybe collection of episodes that I think would be right for you to start with. Answer a few questions, click the button below, and I'll see you on the other side. That, what I just described right there, is an example of a quiz funnel. And a quiz funnel is a way to better understand your market and better sell your services or products, but also better serve at the same time. So better sell and better serve. And you're gathering all this useful intelligence about your market. So when someone goes through this process, you're able to understand your audience. You're able to put them into different buckets and say, oh, I've got kind of these 4 or 5 themes that show up repeatedly. And now I can build a collection of products and programs that serve these different groups of people. You can then feed that information back into your advertising. So you can say, hey, look, these people right here are great customers. Facebook, Google, find me more people like this, taking the intelligence that you've gathered through this technology. So we built this technology. We've had over 82 million end users go through it, which means unique human beings who have gone through one of these assessments online through the technology. And 82 million, it's a great marketing bragging term, but it represents 1% of humanity, which like to me was like pretty cool. Like 1 in 100 people on the planet have gone through an assessment built through that technology online. And we've served, tens of thousands of clients who are using that technology in their business. So that's what a quiz funnel is. That's what we mean when we say end user. And that's kind of the value, some of the value of what a quiz funnel can provide for anyone who's thinking about putting one in their business.
That's so cool. I like that 1%. It's very motivating.
It is. Yeah.
Now you've evolved a bit. So it's not just about the quiz funnel now. Right. Your business is targeting a certain kind of expert. And I'd like you to elaborate for our listener what this hybrid expert means and why it's relevant to them.
Absolutely. So, what we've discovered along the way is we've served so many clients and businesses in this process of building out a quiz and using it as a mechanism to generate leads and generate clients. And what we found along the way is that, as no surprise to anyone listening to this, a quiz does not equal a successful business. There's more to a successful business online than just having one individual component. About 6 years ago, we developed a program that helps people in all aspects of their business, but it was limited to just our highest level clients that kind of went through our quiz funnel training, went through our software, and kind of had success and said, all right, well, what else can you help with in your business? We realized that this was really something that needs to get in the hands of as many people as possible. At the same time, we decided to focus our company around a specific type of business owner, because it's one thing to sell physical products through a Shopify store online. It's another thing to be a software provider. It's another thing to be an affiliate marketer or to be a coach or consultant. And what we found is that we had different types of businesses coming to us from all source points, all with a desire to build a quiz. And then after building a quiz, we were not equipped to support people in all these different types of businesses. After all, if you are a one-person consulting practice, or you are a Shopify store with 1,000 SKUs online selling hardware products like faucets and wrenches and things like that, it would be impossible to serve both of those end customers at the same time. So we decided to focus on really where I have the most passion, where we have the most passion as a company, where we have the most expertise, where we've had the most success. And that is truly helping people that we describe as experts. So coaches, consultants, and other experts who transformed their knowledge into expertise. Now, what we found is that when it comes to building that type of business, there really is no one size fits all answer. There are so many different ways and combinations and permutations that you can build a business around your expertise. And so what we started finding is that the most successful businesses are using a hybrid of a few different strategies in their business. And so we developed this concept called the hybrid expert model, which is one where you're picking from a menu of different options of what's most successful online in what we call the 3 pillars of success: attract, enroll, deliver. In business, you need a way to attract leads, you need a way to enroll those leads into paying clients, and you need a way to deliver your products or services or the results, the transformation, what people are actually paying you for. Attract, enroll, deliver. So we developed this model to help people who are looking to simplify their business, simplify their life, and get leverage at the same time. One of the things I learned, Stephan, in a transition that I had early in my career, where I went from a business and marketing consultant when I started working with individual companies to apply the methodology that I had success with in these niche random markets that I told you about. My first year as a consultant, I made $160,000. And I thought, well, that's not bad. It's decent. It's good income. $160,000 is nothing to write home. But I felt capped because I got to this point where I had 27 clients. And the only way that I could make more money is if I worked more hours. Mm-hmm. One part of my story that I didn't share is I was working so many hours. I was burning the candle on both ends. And I tell this story in my book that I actually ended up in the hospital. It happened in the most mysterious way. I had applied for life insurance and the life insurance application came back denied. I thought it was a mistake. I was in my 30s at the time and I thought it was a mistake. I thought, okay, I'm a healthy man. I'm doing fine. What's going on? I thought my results got crossed with somebody else. And the life insurance agent, when I was on the phone with him, said, hey, I'm going to read you your lab results. I'm not a doctor, but I think you should go see one. So I told my wife, and literally the next day we go to the doctor's office, explain it to the doctor. And he said, okay, well, we'll do a blood draw and we'll order it stat, wait in the waiting room, and we'll see if the results of your life insurance medical exam were a mistake or if they're real. And I remember like it was yesterday, Stephan, the doctor came out, grabs me by the shoulders. He says, Mr. Levesque, you should be in a coma right now. We need to rush you to the ER. I got rushed to the ER and I found out that my body had slipped into a state known as diabetic ketoacidosis. My kidneys were failing, my liver was shutting down, and my pancreas had actually stopped working. My blood sugar levels were so elevated that I was days away, maybe even hours from slipping into a coma. And so anyways, I had to spend 10 days in ICU, 10 days in intensive care. I had a 6-month-old baby at home. I was a new dad. And it gave me time to kind of reflect on my life. And I said, all right, well, I got to be there for my kiddo. I got to be there for my wife. And I got to make some changes in my business because I can't keep doing what I'm doing. It's literally going to kill me. Mm-hmm. And so I made the shift from working one-on-one with clients to focusing entirely on simple, scalable group programs. And in that year, I went from making $160,000 in my consulting business as a consultant to the next year making $1.1 million, working fewer hours, having less stress in my life, and doing it in a way that I was able to reach so many more people. And so this hybrid expert concept was born out of that experience. It was born out of that, how you make the transition as an overworked, underpaid expert, coach, consultant, where you're on the roller coaster, you're on the hamster wheel, you are working more hours than you ever thought you were going to work, to being able to build a business that actually works around your life and not the other way around. And so we've built an entire system around that approach. And now we've served thousands and thousands of our clients to have success in that approach. So it goes far beyond just the quiz that we started talking about and much more holistic approach around not only attracting leads and clients, but enrolling those clients and actually delivering them in a way that allows you to build that business that gives you freedom and flexibility in your life.
Wow. Reminds me what you said at the beginning of this episode about that was the sign I've been looking for.
Yeah.
It's the sign, right?
It was a sign. And I think I've learned that to pay attention to those signs because they're there. I think we sometimes will ignore them. Like we'll just keep forging ahead where we've got a mission and a plan. We say, all right, this is my plan. This is my mission. And I don't know if it's wisdom that comes with a little bit of age, but I've learned when it's too hard, like when it's not working, when things just aren't clicking, oftentimes it means that I just need to take a step back, reflect on what the universe is bringing my way, and maybe, just maybe, there's something even better out there that's beyond what I'd even envisioned. And I think that's true for all of us. I think we can all learn from that. I've very many wise mentors in my life that have slapped me across the face and said, Ryan, you idiot, you should be thinking like that. I've learned to heed that wisdom, and I've learned to pay attention to the signs.
Mm-hmm. Do you know who Jeff Foxworthy is?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, there's your sign.
Exactly. Yeah. And I use that. That's, by the way, as I know we've been talking a little biographical, a little bit philosophical here, but I'll go tactical for a minute so your listeners have some things to take away. That is actually a great line to use when you are in an enrollment discussion. So we talk about attract, enroll, deliver. One of the things that people struggle the most with, especially experts who are not necessarily experts in sales and marketing, but they have an expertise in family therapy or in childhood education or in health or just some other discipline of life that's not sales and marketing, is they struggle with enrollment. We all do. And this is a great line to use in your enrollment conversations you have with people. If you're looking for a sign to say yes, this is the sign right here. So we can borrow that from Jeff Foxworthy and actually use it in our sales conversations, our enrollment conversations. If you're looking for a sign, this right here is the sign that you've been looking for from the universe or God or whatever higher power or being that you are waiting to hear from.
Yeah. Amazing. I was just doing an interview earlier today, and we were talking about signs and how either everything's a sign or nothing's a sign. For somebody who's very materialistic, nothing's a sign. But for somebody who's seeing the magic and the miracles, everything's a sign. Whether it's a butterfly out the window or a certain number on the road sign that you whiz past at 65 miles an hour, none of this is random. So it just pretty miraculous.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
And we all get to make that choice, which is so powerful. You get to choose if you are going to interpret that experience that you're having that we call life and the collection of elements that get thrown your way as being a sign or as being nothing but random noise.
Yeah.
You get to choose, which is so empowering. And it's not to say that there's a better choice or a worse choice. I mean, who are you or I to pass moral judgment on that? But what's so empowering is that we get to choose.
Yeah. That
we get to decide how we interpret those life moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a great book series about the power to choose, the power of choosing for kids. What would Danny do? Or what should Danny do? I think it's what should Danny do. And I read these to my son, who's 3, and he gets to choose. Do I have a tantrum right now? Like the younger brother spilled cereal or whatever. Do I have a tantrum, or do I tell the younger brother, it's okay, don't do that again or something? And when my son chooses one choice and then I turn to that page and then the story continues to evolve or unfold, he's also curious to see what would happen if he made the other choice. It's like a choose your own adventure kind of series, but
that's great
for little kids. And the power to choose is the best power. This kid has a superhero cape, and it's all about the power to choose being his biggest, best superpower, not his ability to jump or to have X-ray vision or any of the other stuff. It's really cool. So that power of free will, of making choices, it's what this whole video game called life is about.
Yeah. And I can't believe I'm not familiar with that book series. 23,000 ratings on Amazon. I'm just looking it up right now with a 4.8 star review.
Yeah.
My kiddos are a little bit older now, but if I could go back in time, that might be one that I pull off the bookshelf. So there's a tip for all the parents here with young kiddos, probably one that's worth taking a look at.
Yeah. For little older kids, I do recommend The Little Soul and the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh. That is an amazing children's book. I have adult kids too, and I read this to one of my adult kids. Just like she was in a dark place at that moment. And I really thought that book would help her. And it really did. I read it to her over FaceTime.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really cool. So anyways, back to practicalities of marketing. So if our listener is an expert
Yeah.
and they want to get off of the hamster wheel of more hours to get more dollars, and they want to do that jump, that 160K to 1.1 million that you achieved, but they have different numbers, of course. What is the first step for them to take?
It's a great question. So what it comes down to is this. So as I mentioned before, there are a million ways to make $1 million. You got to pick one, and you got to go all in. It's not enough. Half measures are not going to get you to where you want to go. You've got to put the blinders on to everything else, focus on one approach, and really give 100% of yourself to that. And what I've learned is that you just need one way to attract, one way to enroll, and one way to deliver. The way that I made that transition from $160,000 to $1.1 million in less than a year was by selling one thing. And I just sold that same thing, that same one thing. And I did it every single week. And I did it with consistency. And I did it with a focus on continuous improvement, incremental improvement every week, trying to make things a little bit better, 1% better today, 1% better tomorrow. But the first approach, the first step to the process before you can build your attraction funnel, your enrollment presentation, and your delivery program is you've got to do a step before that we call design. You've got to design three things. You've got to design your message, your offer, and your model. And you've got to begin with the end in mind. So one of the things that I found is that when you are an expert, there's this predictable path that we all go through. And it kind of looks a little something like this. You start your business, or before you start your business, you're in what we call the B box. B stands for bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. You're super excited. Like you think about, oh, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to start my business. You have these dreams and these visions of what things are going to look like. And then you make the first of two transitions. And the first transition, we call this the leap. You make the leap. You decide, all right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start this thing. And it could be a side hustle. You could do what I did and just, I left my career and started brand new, or maybe somewhere in between. You make the leap and you think you're going to get to the place that you want to get to. Instead, the reality is you land in what we call the T box. And the T box is tired and trapped. And that's where I found myself when I was in the hospital bed. I was tired and trapped. I had created a business in which I was a prisoner. And I have a mentor that once told me, he said, Ryan, we are all responsible for building the prisons that we are inside of right now. And we're all inside some form of a prison. If you think about your life, you have created a prison for yourself with the choices and decisions that you've made, whatever that is, where you're living, maybe responsibilities and obligations that you have in your life, certain choices that you've made that have led you to this moment in time right now. These are the sum total of where we're at. But the good news is there's a key, and you can get yourself out of that prison, and you can get yourself to a place of what we call the F box, freedom and flexibility, by making the second transition. And the second transition, we call this the switch. And the switch is by reorienting everything that you do in your business around one word. Do you know what that word is, Stephan?
Nope.
Find out in part 2 of this interview. No, just kidding. The word is leverage.
Okay.
And when I say leverage, what I mean by leverage in this context is decoupling your income from your time. So the trap of the expert is that we have this expertise and we get caught in this time for money trap. You're a consultant. You work with your clients. They want you. You get paid an hourly rate for the work that you do. And the only way to make more money is to either work more hours or take on more clients. But when I learned about the power of the switch, of shifting from one-on-one client work to scalable, simple group programs, what I learned is this incredibly powerful math equation. So it looks like this. Imagine that you are making $100 an hour. And let's say you are working with clients one-on-one. You say, all right, I want to make more money. So what do? You work more hours. And you're working 10 hours a week, making $100 an hour. And you scale that to 20 hours, and then 30 hours, and then 40 hours. And then what happens is run out of hours. And you either hit a ceiling and you can't increase your income, or you've only got one choice. And that choice is raise your rate. But in every market, there is a price ceiling to what you can charge for the work that you do on a one-on-one basis. You'll reach this ceiling and then you won't be able to break through it. And that will be your ceiling in your income. Let's look at another paradigm. Imagine instead of charging $100 an hour to work with people one-on-one, you're working with people in some type of group format, call it a group program. And you might not be able to charge $100 an hour for working with people in a group setting, but maybe you could charge $50 an hour. And if you've got a group of 2 people, you are making the same amount of money that you would be making working with people one at a time. But let's say now you scale that to 4 people who are paying you $50 an hour. Now, instead of making $100 an hour, you're making $200 an hour. And you scale that to 10 people. And now, instead of making $100 an hour, you're making $1,000 an hour. And when you do the math like this, and you look at how do you scale down the one-on-one work that you're doing and scale up the group work, there becomes this tipping point where it's not about making the shift overnight. It's not about saying, all right, I'm going to fire all my clients and then launch an online course and then hope that everything goes well. It's doing it in an incremental, systematic way, whereby you're getting rid of your worst clients. Think about, if you're listening to this right now, the client that is giving you the most problems, the person in your life, you're like, oh man, I don't want to deal with that person anymore. We all have these people in our lives. These people serve a purpose. They teach us grace and courtesy and patience. They're there for a reason. And they're there so we can tell stories over a drink or beverage, over a cup of coffee one of these days, right? And so you scale down the one-on-one work and you scale up the group work. But here's the dynamic. Let's say, for example, you are working 40 hours a week, and 20 hours of the 40 hours, half of your time is with one-on-one clients, and then 20 hours is with group clients. And let's say that you are making, I'm just going to pick numbers, $5,000 a month working with clients one-on-one, $5,000 a month in a group program. So $10,000 a month in total. And you decide that you're going to scale your one-on-one work down in half. You're going to go from 20 hours a week to 10 hours a week. And you're going to scale up the number of group clients that you take on in your group program to offset that loss in income. But the cool thing is you're not working any extra hours. Mm-hmm. You're still working the 20 hours. But now, instead of 20 hours one-on-one, 20 hours group, you've got 20 hours group, 10 hours one-on-one. You've just given yourself an extra 10 hours a week of your life back simply by shifting from one-on-one to group work. And Stephan, when you do the math, 10 hours a week is about 520 hours a year. And 520 hours a year is about 21 days. So the way I look at it is, what are you doing with those extra 21 days that you just bought yourself? Are you going on a 3-week vacation? Are you spending those 21 days at the beach, in the mountain, at the lake, with your kiddos, with your adult kiddos, with your grandkiddos? Mm-hmm. What are you doing with those 21 days? And so this incremental switch is what we call the hybrid expert model, because you're doing a hybrid of several different things. You're not discarding what's worked to get you to this point, but you are making some subtle shifts in your business and your life that are all designed around leverage. In fact, I advise people that they write that word in all capital letters and put it on a Post-it note or a place on their office or whiteboard. Write that word down. Is this decision that I'm making right now, talking about the power of choice, is the choice I'm making right now, is it giving me more leverage in my business or less? There's no such thing as standing still. Every choice that you make either moves you forward or backward on the spectrum. And when you think about that dichotomy, it's very powerful when you ask yourself that question introspectively and you say, is this giving me more or less leverage in my life? It's a powerful rubric to use. So everything revolves around that word leverage. And when you rethink and reframe your business around that concept, then what it does is it puts every decision that you make through a certain level of scrutiny and through the lens of, is this going to help me build a business that provides freedom and flexibility and fulfillment for my life? Or is it me putting me back in the prison of feeling tired and trapped and having a business that controls my life instead of the other way around? And like we were talking about earlier, the cool thing is we all get to make the choice.
Yeah.
We get to choose what we do in our business.
Yeah. If you're coming at it from a scarcity mindset, you won't fire your bad fit clients because you'll imagine that revenue will not get replaced.
That's absolutely true. And some of the reasons why we make decisions like that is because we don't see a viable alternative. So what we see, and I've been here myself, so I'm not, and I'm just a learner helping other learners. So I don't want anyone to feel like, or, interpret what I'm saying is this guy is claiming he's got it all figured out. I've made a lot of mistakes and I have the war injuries to prove it, and true, actually, biological injuries. So so the punchline to my health story is, as an adult, I had an autoimmune response that was so severe, my body attacked my pancreas to the point that it no longer works. And so now I am on an artificial pancreas. I have an artificial insulin pump that's attached to my body in a sensor. And it all stems from the fact that I pushed it too hard. I burned the candle on both ends, and I was pushing it hard in business. I was pushing it hard in life. And then my wife had a baby, and I had a 6-month-old at home. And I wasn't sleeping. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I just couldn't do it anymore. And I see so many people who have had some version of that experience, their own version of, I can't do this anymore. So to your point about scarcity and abundance, I think one of the reasons why we are afraid, and so much of what we do in life is fear-based, right? Like I think about, the reason why I worked so hard in school it was in part because I wanted to succeed, but it was a fear of getting B's and C's. It was like, I was afraid of failing. Like what my life would just be this abject failure. So we do a lot of things based on fear. But I think one of the reasons why we're afraid to leave those clients that we don't enjoy working with is because we don't see a clear, viable alternative. But when we have that alternative and we see that there's a path to get there, so it looks like this: attract, enroll, deliver. 1, 1, 1. One way to attract, one way to enroll, one way to deliver. Deliver, you switch from clients to cohorts. Instead of thinking in terms of one at a time, one client at a time, think in terms of cohorts, this group of people that I'm going to be serving. On the enroll side of the equation, instead of thinking in terms of conversations, one-on-one sales conversations that you might have, think in terms of presentations. How do we speak to people in a group setting? And on the attract side of the equation, instead of thinking in terms of contacts, like who can I meet who might be able to be a client, think in terms of crowds. What is a crowd of people that I might be able to connect with and speak to? And even in this conversation right here, so this is the meta learning, the meta takeaway, is this is a perfect example of a crowd. And there are so many different platforms and events and opportunities for you to share your message with people in a group setting that gives you more leverage. So yes, it is a scarcity abundance thing. And yes, it requires having a clarity of path, attract, enroll, deliver, and then get started. To answer the original question that you asked before I got off on this tangent here, to design a business that works around your life, you need a message, offer, and model that supports it.
Yeah.
Your message should come from your market, not from your mind. So that's lesson number one. What do I mean by that? Don't get caught up in marketing buzz speak or put pressure on yourself to have to figure out exactly what to say in your marketing. If you learn to listen and pay attention to the natural language that is emanating from your market, it really becomes as simple as echoing that back to the people who have expressed that. And when you create this reaction in people's brains where they say, oh my goodness, it's like she or he can better understand what's going on in my life than even I can even better describe it myself. The only question people have after that experience is, what should I do about it? Like, what's my next step? So that's the message piece. Message should come from your market, not from your mind. Offer. It needs to be an irresistible offer. And this is where a lot of people fall short. You can't just put something out there and say, oh, buy my thing or whatever. It needs to be an offer so good that it creates the reaction where people want to throw their credit card at you. Like, take my money already. You need a just take my money offer. And the beautiful thing is, it might feel like that's magic, but there's a systematic way to engineer that response in people's brains. So message, check. Offer, check. Model here, you want to emulate before you innovate. Don't try to say, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and I'm going to take people from this step to that step and this step and that step. Don't try to invent or reinvent the wheel. I have a mentor who once taught me this expression that's always stuck with me. He said, Ryan, pioneers get shot, settlers get rich. Be the settler, not the pioneer. So don't try to create something new. Instead, find something that is working. Find a proven systematic approach, someone who's walked the path 1,000 times, who's figured it out, who's made all the mistakes. And all you need to do is just focus on executing those steps. Instead of being the first to try to climb to the top of the mountain, blazing a trail, follow the path. Because if you put one step in front of the other, you will get to the summit. It's just a matter of doing the work, putting the time, effort, energy, and in some cases money into that direction. So that's what I'd say, Stephan, as far as next immediate steps. Attract, enroll, deliver, focus on your message, offer, and model. And it all begins, I think, with belief. Belief that there is an alternative path that might be different from the approach that you might be taking right now.
Wow, that's great stuff. And one thing that popped into my mind when you were talking about the bad fit client and firing that person, it's so my friend Joe Polish, you probably know.
I was literally, this is so ironic.
Yeah.
Literally talking to Joe today.
Okay, that's funny. Well,
literally like hours ago before this conversation.
Well, of course, there are no coincidences, right?
This is a sign. It's one of these signs.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So he says, and I love this statement, some people are in your life just to be a bad example. Right? So if you look at this client who was never a good fit and they're just hard work and you've been getting in life what you've been tolerating, which is a lot of pain from this particular client or maybe from a group of these folks, it's a choice, as you say, but it's a setup. It's a divine setup for you to take action. And if you don't take action, if you're willing to tolerate this bad fit client, then the heat will be turned up on you. And you can wait until it gets very uncomfortable, or you could just go ahead and take massive action and do the thing that you're supposed to do.
Sometimes we need a crisis or an acute pain in order to create sufficient motivation for change.
Yep.
And I love that perspective that some people are in your life just to set a bad example.
Another thing that popped in my mind while you were talking, and it's pretty metaphysical, this idea that everything is co-created in your life, not created by you, but co-created by you. And you're doing this in partnership with the creator and your angels and your unseen support team. There's a great book called Hiring the Heavens. It's a little book by Gene Slatter, and it talks about how you can engage your angelic assistants in business planning, in prospecting, in removing blockages and things that are preventing the sale from closing. It's very, very powerful because the unseen world is more real than the seen world. So if you're willing to suspend your disbelief and take this idea on board that things are happening in the upper worlds or in the unseen, kind of behind the veil, and that this is all kind of designed purposefully, perfectly, and with precision, then you can, for example, ask God to be your business partner, like Curtis Lee Thomas did, who was a guest on my other podcast. He's really smart guy and breathwork hybrid expert. So he's figured out that group model and he does really well with it. So he had a huge shift in his business, and it all happened when a friend of his was saying how God is his business partner. He's like, how do I do that? I want God to be my business partner. And he did. And life became so much easier because you can go through somebody's model or framework with no faith, or you could go through it with no fear. So fear is inverse faith. I learned that from the book, The Game of Life and How to Play It, which is by Florence Scovel Shinn from 100 years ago. Amazing book. Like, she saw the Matrix 100 years ago. So anyways, if you're so inclined to ask God to be your business partner, and then he says yes, and then you're just like, clients are showing up at your door and you don't have to do the hard slog anymore. It's not just about doing the model It's about having faith. So, for example, I used to attend a lot of conferences. We were talking about this before the recording, right?
Yes.
We met at Traffic and Conversion Summit. I haven't been there for years. You haven't been there for years. Why not? Because we don't need to be. Right? Neither of us need to go to that show or umpteen number other shows in order to get enough business to grow our footprint. So that's something that I've been so grateful for, because I used to be on the road a lot, 2 or 3 times a month, speaking at conferences and different kinds of networking events and things. And it was exhausting, but my wife went with me and it was fun. We have a 3-year-old now. She doesn't travel because then we'd be bringing our 3-year-old, and it's a lot more hassle. So consequently, it doesn't fit with my lifestyle and what I want to achieve for me to be on the road all the time anymore. And I don't have to be. So those clients are coming from elsewhere, and some of them are coming from such a clear message from, like, talk about signs. Like, I have no doubt that it was dropped on my lap, like manna coming from down from heaven. And I didn't have to apply a framework or a model. Not to say that that's not helpful, but one without the other doesn't get you where you want to go.
It's a powerful, very powerful perspective and way of thinking. And there's something that you said that that reminded me of something that I've always held true, which is this idea that constraints breeds creativity. And when you have a constraint in your life and you prioritize certain things in your life, that solutions that you may not have envisioned or thought about will present themselves. And so when your constraint is, I am not traveling because of XYZ reason, then what happens is you start to see opportunities and possibilities in ways that you didn't ever see before. So I think it's an interesting, almost flip side to the coin, which is enlisting the support of the universe or a higher power in your journey and calling to that and listening to that. It's there. It's less about, for me, and this is, I know, super metaphysical here, but it's about almost opening up the part of you that can experience that and let yourself be open to that possibility. And whatever your belief system is, I think one thing that I hope that we can all agree on is that there are certain things, certain phenomenon in life that we can't explain. There are certain things that we could not explain 10 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, that we now have explanations for. And so if you believe that to be true, there are certain things that we could not explain, then therefore there are still things that we don't have a way to explain now that perhaps in time we may be able to have an explanation for. So if you leave yourself open to the possibility that there are certain forces in nature and life in the universe that we don't quite fully comprehend, that we can't quite fully explain or document or fully appreciate, and you leave yourself open to the possibility that, again, the choice, you make a choice, you choose to believe that there is a way that can support you. And then you couple that with the constraints that you've laid down for yourself and in your life and prioritize, this is what's most important to me, then you can truly build a business that allows you to achieve everything that you hope to achieve and much, much more.
Yeah.
And that's what I choose to believe, that that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. I'm excited for our listener to hear this message and for them to apply it in their lives, because this podcast isn't about entertainment. It's not about edutainment. It's not passive listening pleasure. This is for people to reveal more light in the world and make a bigger impact. So I really hope that they take what you've shared and the wisdom and your great stories and experience and apply it in their lives.
Well, Stephan, it's been an absolute pleasure. And, as I put some reflection upon our conversation here today and the fact that this was probably 5 years in the making, maybe, just maybe, there was some wisdom, some infinite wisdom in the universe that took us to this point in time to have this conversation, that now is the right time. And what we co-created here today in partnership with everyone listening to this and watching this right now, is something that hopefully will be able to have a positive impact in the world. So with that being said, it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure. Very, very grateful for the opportunity. And I sure do hope that it's not 5 years that goes by between now and the next time we have a chance to connect.
Likewise. And if our listener wants to learn more, work with your company, all that sort of good stuff, where do they go?
Yeah, a great next place to go is hybridexpert.com. We'll take you to kind of our website. You get to learn a little bit more of what we do and how things work. And if you're interested in any of what we talked about here today, go to that page. You can kind of learn about the different ways that you can work with us. And we have a number of different opportunities, including some free ways to just go deeper and kind of learn more about what we talked about here today and take the next step.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. And thank you, listener. We'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.